back here at Legacy Books, and we've got Jack Greef with us. Now, Jack Greef, you will remember, is one of our fellows, one of the men who actually spoke to us answering Special Forces questions with Stein and Frans Fourie himself. And that was one of the most looked at videos ever on the show. So I'm very grateful to have Jack back. We are here today to talk about his book. He wrote it a few years ago, but you know what? It's still relevant. And we're very glad to have you with us, Jack. Welcome here. Can you tell me this book of yours? Let's start with a name. Can you tell us the name of your book and where did you get to that name?
Chris, yes, thank you for the opportunity to talk about the book on this net. It will definitely help. The book is still very much alive after 19 years, so it's still going strong. It's going off the shelf, not at the rate that one would like, but it's still alive and it's going on. The title of the book, A Greater Share of Honor, comes from the speech by old King Henry V, just before the Battle of Agincourt against the French, when he spoke to his men, and he said to them that the fewer men left after the battle, the greater share of honor each will have. And that's where I got the title from.
I'm going to flash the book here in front of everybody so that they can see it, and there will be links in the description, and we expect you to go and buy the book because, as Jack said, it's still relevant and you can learn a lot from this book. In fact, it's a very good thing when you have a book which is a few years old, because then it stood the test of time. Then you know, if it was outright rubbish, the rest of the forces, the rest of the Special Forces members would have said so. And since we haven't said so, we can, I think, all agree that this is a good book. But at the front page, who's sitting there? I think I recognize you yourself, but who else is there?
On the front page, it's myself, and when I was still pretty and young. And the other guy is my buddy, a guy by the name of Tony Vieira, and he was recruited from 3-2 Battalion, and he was trained in the Recces, and became my reconnaissance buddy for that operation. With the third man, a guy by the name of Sam Fourie, who took the photo. And that photo was taken during Operation Amazon, which was the attack on Lobito oil installations in the Lobito harbor.
Jack, may I ask you, I've written a few books myself, and I know a few authors, and everybody has his own reason on why he actually write a book, why he took the trouble, why we would sit down, spend so many hours. It's really about money. When you get money, you're actually very happy to get money. But most authors will sadly not be able to live off with book income. They still have to work a job somewhere. That's life. That's how it is. But what happened with you? Why did you decide you want to write a book?
Chris, from the start, I realized it's not going to be a Harry Potter hit. There's a couple of reasons. The main one was, at that time, one was finished with the army and you were sitting around campfires and you had all these stories to tell, and the baggage was getting heavier and heavier, and you couldn't really talk about it. And then there were 2 books were written, one by Peter Stiff and the other one by Paul Els on the Recce operations. And I decided to give it a go. But apart from that, I had a lot of prodding from other operators that knew my background and said, why don't you write? Why don't you write? You've been there. You've been all these big operations and Savannah and all that. Write a book. And I still didn't take off. I still held on, and because I don't like to talk about myself. It's not in my nature. And then we had a Rhino security workshop in the Cape, and I bumped into Mr. Nick Steele, who's a very big military, big military historian, and he listened to some of my stories, and he didn't stop after that, prodding me and inspiring me to start writing and put it on paper. And his son, or both his sons, I'm not sure, was a helicopter pilot, Puma helicopter pilots, which we have worked together with, and he had a very good background of what we did. So he started prodding me. And then the final reason I think was, during my early military career, I had a lot of inspiration from books that was written, Second World War books on special operations, like the Long Range Desert Group, the Special Boat Service, the Special Air Service, the Commandos, and all these guys. And that was my passion. And I read that over and over. And I decided I want to be like that. And I want to do operations like that. And that really inspired me. So the hope was that after I've written the book, is that some of the younger operators that follow in our footsteps will be inspired by what we have done and how we've done it, and push the limits. There's always somebody better than you, so they might do operations better than what we have in the past, based on what they've learned from us, that take it that one step further. So that was the main reasons why I decided to put pen to paper. And yeah, it took me about 2 years to complete the book, working every morning before my parades and work.
That's fascinating to me, because I spoke to some of the members of your elite regiment, and they said to me that they sort of wrote the manual as they were going along. There were no one before them. You people were the first. And so what you've basically done now is you've opened the way for a young operator to learn from your experiences, and that's fantastic. Would you agree with such a statement?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we started in the unit, there was no manuals, and what we used is our imagination that we picked up from reading other books, like a book like Cocktail Heroes, where these guys have rowed with canoes into harbors and blown up ships and that kind of stuff. And we thought, okay, we can do better. We've done it. We've worked with canoes. We've traveled with canoes up rivers, down rivers, got bitten by hippos and that kind of stuff. So you get an idea, and then you follow up on that idea and you work on that idea. And most of what we've done, the Second World War guys have done it. They've laid limpet mines on targets. We've done it. They've rowed with canoes. We've done it. They've jumped with parachutes, got lost and broke legs, and that we've done it. So yeah, no, I'm sure that the book will be as an inspiration to younger guys. In fact, I've had a couple of young operators that are serving at the moment that have, when they saw me wherever at some function or some gathering, they would come up to me and say, "I've read your book. I've been inspired by the book. Thank you." And so I'm happy about that. I think I've achieved the aim.
But I have to ask you, Jack, is this book written in such a technical way that only a soldier will understand it, or is it for the open public?
Of course, no. It's not an historical fact book. If you want to know when exactly happened, in fact, there's some of these operations I can't even remember whether it was December or and which year. So what I've done is a chronological sequence of my military career, which I feel was fairly exciting. And then I was lucky to be the right guy at the right time at the right place, and I got pulled in to do reconnaissance work and to participate in a lot of these big operations. And yeah, so it wasn't it was I was just lucky to be there and to be able to put that experience on paper and write this book. I was blessed and very. In fact, the first few pages of the book, I give God all the honor, because He was with me all the way. I should have been dead a couple of times during training and operations, and he mercifully pulled me through all these dangerous situations to where I am today. And so the greatest share of honor goes to God.
That is, I cannot improve on that. That is just a great statement. But I'm sure that people now want to know what's the book like. If you can just take us through the book, chapter by chapter, tell us a few things.
Okay, I think what I've done is the way to go about it is to just go through each chapter quickly and just give the the focus or what's the word? The focus on the chapter, just briefly, without telling the story, because the guys must go and buy the book if they want to read the story. Yeah, we've discussed the title. It comes out of that big battle between the French and the British, and there was also that quote where, in the same speech, he quoted, "Those who share their blood with me shall be my brother." And so that quote's also used a lot in amongst your special troops, band of brothers type situation. The next chapter is the dedication. There, I felt the book should be dedicated to all the mothers who lost their sons during the Bush War. And we don't think, or we don't realize how the mother is affected in these situations. She brings the child up, brings the young man, bring him up. And I've seen that with my wife and my son, the relationship between that. And I can only imagine if that son is taken away from the family due to a war which he didn't want to participate in, but he had to, and he did. And the effect on the mothers, and I think the mothers are very much affected by that, more than what we think. So the dedication is to all the mothers who lost their sons in the Bush War. The second part is the preface, where I mention, as I've said, it's not a historical facts. If you want to do research, read the book, but you're not going to get dates, times there in the book. I've written as it came up in the sequence that I've experienced everything. The introduction in the book is brief. It is just to give the reader an idea of what special forces is there for, how they are equipped, and what their roles are, and why does a military have a special force. So it's not a detailed thing. It's a summary of why special forces. What is a special forces? And special operations. Why do they classify the special operations? Then there's an introduction, also brief. I passed that. Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is called The Men. And what I've done there is it's a brief brief summary of the makeup of the men. So that was in my team at some stage. The reconnaissance guys, the small teams, the specialist reconnaissance guys, the makeup of them. Just quickly, each guy, where he comes from, and his character, in brief, very, very short, and how we got together and how we worked together. Next chapter is Operation Savannah, which, for those that don't know, is the Angolan Civil War. And that was my really big war to start with. But before Operation Savannah, obviously, I'm not going into detail in the first part of the book, like many writers do, is their childhood and how they were brought up and that kind of stuff. It's not about that. This is about my military career and how I got there and what I did there. So the Operation Savannah obviously was at that stage very highly classified. So we had to get rid of everything that looked South African. So we had to get rid of our boots, everything. We walked in there with shorts and t-shirts and were given uniforms that didn't fit and that tastes that rot within a week and that kind of stuff. And we ate pilchards and millimil for weeks. And then the Operation Savannah itself, giving the reader a very good idea what happened there and how we met the first Cubans and how we slaughtered the first Cubans at the place called Kateng. The first battle between Cubans is also very interesting. I think they will find it very interesting. The next chapter 3, is called the Recces, and that gives a brief outline of the selection course. Again, it's not a step-by-step walk 500 kilometers until a guy passes out, that kind of description. It's a after the chapter, the reader will have a very good idea of what we were capable of, how far we could walk, and what entailed the selection and the training after the selection to qualify as a reconnaissance soldier. Many guys have said to me, they can't believe that we have walked so far. I mean, one exercise or one leg can be 80 kilometers long along the beach. And the next one will be 30, and the next one will be 20, and then another 50. So it was walk, 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 walk all the time. And but again, it's not a step-by-step account of the walking. It gives a good background of the training, the selection, and the training until the guy qualifies. Chapter 4 is my first big operation in the reconnaissance regiment. It was called Operation Crop Dive, which you guys have mentioned in previous programs. That's the Operation Eheki, where we jumped in with 2 C-160 aircraft at night, midnight, landed at the wrong drop zone, and from there had to make our way to the base, attack the base at the wrong time, and etc., etc. So that is a detailed account of Operation Crop Dive, what went wrong there, and how we did it, and how we managed to get out there. That operation was the turning point in the Recce, at that stage. We lost very good men, and it was a shock to us all, and the powers to be decided that we shouldn't be used in that type of role, and then they looked for other types of operations that we could do. Then that led to us being sent to what we call the Russian front, which is the next chapter 5. The Russian front, which is the area called the Gaza province in Mozambique, which used to be guarded by the Zulu scouts. They had kept an eye on that. And I think they gave it over to the SAS, the Rhodesian SAS. And the Rhodesian SAS were only too happy to hand that area over to us when we arrived there, because it's a green desert. There is no water. It's flat. It's sandy, and there's a bit of grass. And if the enemy knew we were there, they burned the grass, and then we couldn't hide ourselves, and we were on the run. And there we got to the term which we refer to as the Gunston 500, which is the rally that used to take place many years ago. When they started the enemy started chasing us, we referred to as the start of the Gunston, another Gunston 500. So we were running a lot there. We were chased a lot. We learned a lot. That was our training school for special operations in the future. We learned a lot from the SAS there, but it was very demanding, and we've lost a couple of guys there in the process. It was also a good selection for the guys that were not 100% sure whether you should stay in the Recces or leave. That Russian front really separated the men from the boys, and quite a number of operators qualified left there after a Russian front and decided to go and farm or work somewhere in a shop or something. Chapter 6 is called small team operations. That was a concept that was developed by the Zulu Scouts, a guy by the name of Schulenburg, Chris Schulenburg, and we went, the Recces went there, a guy by the name of Andre Diedericks went there, got the idea, came back and developed the small team concept, and I felt at that stage that is the way to work, is in two-man teams. You can do a lot more damage in a two-man team than in a large team. You can do as much damage. It's safer because you've got more control over the operation. And so what I've done in that chapter, I've pulled out a number of small team operations of various makeup, of various types: reconnaissance, sabotage. What was there else? I think an urban reconnaissance. yeah, so that's basically it. So it's a few operations that covers a wide range of skills by the small team, like snipers as well. There's this one of very few sniper operations that was done in Angola, is described there, and it's mainly because of the terrain that we couldn't really use snipers there. So that chapter gives the reader a good idea on how what small teams are and how they are selected and how they can be employed. Chapter 7 is called Instant Guerrilla Warfare, and that covers mainly our operations with UNITA. Very interesting if you read how these guys have worked. You know, you hear about guerrilla fighters, and it sounds very romantic, but it is not that romantic. It's a very, very hard work. And the reason I called it instant guerrilla warfare is the chapter is we as Recce's cannot become guerrillas. We are not guerrilla fighters. We can employ guerrilla tactics like ambushes, raids, and sniping operations. That's guerrilla tactics. But inherent, we are not guerrillas. The guerrilla comes from the people. He fights for the people and with the people, and he stays in that area. It's his house. It's his home. He fights at home. We are not that. We go in, pull out, go back home, braai, eat, and then build up fat, while these guys remain thin. And there I've realized what a strong character Jonas Savimbi was, what strong leader he was, to be able to motivate those guys to be able to walk that far and stay in the bush and grow. His organization grew to a few 100,000 guerrillas because of his leadership. So that will be very interesting for many of the readers. Chapter 8 is called Urban Operations. Urban in Durban, we refer to it. I was tasked to design the urban training, develop the urban curriculum, and at the time when the superiors realized that the Bush war is coming to a gradual halt and we need to look at our urban skills. So I developed the urban training and presented the few first two courses, and then and the reader will also get a good idea of the equipment we used and the approach to urban training, which we switched the approach a little bit from the hostage situation to the more offensive situation. So we trained as offensive troops, not as hostage release guys. And that was the main approach. And with that, equipment had to be developed to climb up buildings and over walls and through windows, and ladders of all sorts of types of ladders you can think of was designed and had to be tested. That was very interesting for me, but it was not my line of work, and I did it. Then I was also tasked to do a urban reconnaissance in Lusaka for a raid, which the people also find very interesting, how we would have executed the raid. It did not come off because of political reasons, but the plan is there, and how the reconnaissance was done, and that was an urban reconnaissance, undercover type work, and then the raid would have, I think, would have shocked the enemy right into their boots. So that is all there. Chapter 9 is what we refer to as a strategic operation, and the aim of that operation was called Operation Amazon. And Amazon, the aim of Amazon was, by this time the reader would have read the several operations that we've done to try and cut off the supply to the south of Angola. It was operations like shooting down aircraft, blowing bridges, blowing tunnels. The Humbea tunnel was blown at that we have blown up, tried to destroy. It was situated on the Liba Pass. Okay, so when that didn't work, they decided to take on the supply, the fuel supply of Angola, and we started in the south. Big port, big storage facilities at Lobito, which we attacked very successfully, destroyed the whole target, 3 targets, destroyed 3 targets completely. A lot of oil was destroyed, and that operation was done in 2 phases. It was a reconnaissance phase where they took me in by submarine. I explained the life on submarine and all that happens in the submarine, and then the reconnaissance itself. And then we came back and we gave the intelligence to the raiding party, and they prepared, and we attacked that very successfully. That operation motivated the high command immensely, and their tails were up, and they were ready for bigger things. And when that did not work, obviously the destruction at Lobito, all that happened is they transported the fuel for the war effort in the south straight from Luanda, from the refinery. So that was the next target, which is the next chapter, Operation Kerslig, which you have covered on your show. Again, for that operation, I was tasked to do the reconnaissance, very, very risky reconnaissance. We went in, did a reconnaissance, went back to the ships, developed the photos, and led the raiding party in, and then things went wrong on the attack, during the attack, and how we managed to extract ourselves out of that situation. That was, and the after effects, what happened after that. That was Operation Kerslig, also a strategic operation to try and affect the enemy's war effort. The next chapter, 11, is Operation Katisha. Funny name, but at that stage, they pulled the names of the operations from the computer, and the computer generated the name. So he had funny names like Katisha, which doesn't mean anything. Kerslig could have been traced back to the big flame. So if they hear the word Kerslig and they translated it from Afrikaans to English, then to Portuguese, they can realize there's a big flame, so it might be the refinery. So they started changing the name of the operations that shouldn't be linked to anything other than just a funny word. Some of those words we couldn't even pronounce. Okay, Katisha was another strategic operation to cut off the fuel supply to Zimbabwe because they were supporting the ANC. And the attack was aimed at the harbor, at the storage facilities in the Beira harbor in Mozambique. Now, by that time, the Rhodesian SAS have already attacked that target. So the security around that target was beefed up, and they deployed anti-aircraft weapons around it and trenches with troops and that kind of stuff. So getting in there was very, very risky and hairy, and we did that a reconnaissance. Myself and my buddy, which I selected, was an Australian guy by the name of Frank Tunney, and he and myself did the reconnaissance. We split up. He did the alternative route, and I checked out the main route. We worked ourselves through the enemy positions and determined the main route, came back, we picked up, debriefed the guys, and we led them in the next night or two later and destroyed the whole facility. And there's some newspaper clips. Zimbabwe was without fuel for weeks. But because it was a political operation, strategic but political, Old Pickwater gave the go-ahead, and they supplied Mugabe, who was crying on his shoulder, with fuel by rail from South Africa. So the operation was actually a waste of time, because after that, Mugabe, when his fuel system got going again, he just laughed at Old Pick and the fool that they've made of himself and of South Africa. If we destroyed that target and we didn't supply Zimbabwe with food, they would have been broken. The economy would have been broken after a few days. There was no fuel, and the people started beating each other at the fuel pumps. Okay, so that basically ended my career in the Recce's on a very high note. Then the epilogue is just a very short. Where are the guys now? What are they doing? What are they up to? And inside, in the middle, in the center of the book, there's 130 photographs, black and white, colored photographs of anything that we could photograph. We were fairly restricted, which is a pity. We were not allowed to take cameras with us to take photos. The photos that are there was taken illegally, if you want to call it that. So but we could have done a lot better. But there are a lot of photos, and it will give the reader a very good idea of what we look like, what our equipment looks like, what the terrain looked like, the UNITA setup. What does a UNITA guerrilla look like? People don't. If you don't see a photo of the guys, you'll think they are very superhumans. And then there's a few maps of the targets, old maps, and then current Google Maps which the reader can compare and see what the target looked like then and what it looks like now. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if you have any other questions. That's basically the book, sums up the book.
And Jack, I have to tell you, this is probably the most fascinating insight in South African military history I've heard in a very long time. I mean, I would urge anybody, if you have at all an interest in this subject, go and get that book. So my next question would be, where can we find this book? And I will put the links in below as well. But it's still available?
Yes, the book is alive, but as I said, it's not out of print. It's printed on demand. So as the demand grows, obviously we print more books. So the reader might, or the guy ordering a book might have to wait a few weeks if we are out of stock, so that we print again. There's not millions of them stocked somewhere on a shelf. So there's a few sources. The one is lulu.com. Which I think will suit the overseas readers. They can buy the book from lulu.com. I'm not sure what the price is. Then there's, in South Africa, there's a website called War Books, which they can order online from. And then they can order it from me personally. I can sign the book, and I'll post it for them, but they have to be patient. I might run out of stock. And another warning for the other overseas orders, it's very expensive for us to post that book via courier or normal postage from South Africa. It costs more than the book itself. So if you order from overseas, from me personally or from the other guys, you can expect to pay about double the price of the book for the postage. So those are the main suppliers at the moment of the book. And yeah, well, if it picks up now and suddenly I had to produce 1 million books, I'll do so. But it's going to take some time to get the 1 million books printed. So yeah, the book is available. It's still alive. It's still doing very well. And I get good feedback every now and then from people from overseas and everywhere that really enjoyed the book. So it's alive and well. It was probably the first book that was written by an operator, and it's the third book on Recce operations, with the first being a first-hand account by an operator, 2001. So it's 19 years old, the book. It's going strong.
Jack, I've been listening to you, and I can tell you that this is fascinating stuff. And I think it's an important book. And the fact that the book survived so long shows to me that there's quality to it. So I would urge everybody here, listening here, go and get hold of that book. If you have a problem getting hold of a book, contact me. I'll see if I can help you. Until we meet again, God bless.